you for having me. And yes, this is perfect timing for the book because it reflects exactly what's going on, the combination of remembering about the Holocaust and protecting our homeland, Israel, as a safe haven for Jews across the globe. This book has been the culmination, really, I think, of a lifetime of work. I spent the first 25 years of my professional life in the entertainment industry as a lawyer, business exec, creative executive, producer, writer, and the last 11 years as a in the weeds, grassroots activist against the cultural boycott campaign, both calling and connecting with the representatives of artists who are under fire, as well as talking about it in the public domain. And it became apparent to me that what was really necessary to both educate and inspire people to take action was a book on the subject, a book taking BDS to task and doing it. It's set in the entertainment industry, which has been the target of the BDS campaign, but also these stories about celebrities. And the first group of celebrities you mentioned, Sylvia, which was, the Britney Spears, Rihanna, Alicia Keys, are actually victims of the BDS campaign. They are not participants like Roger Waters. And they've been victimized by this too. So it's an opportunity to explain to everyone and inspire them to take action. And I feel incredibly motivated to help people understand how dangerous the cultural boycott campaign is. We all, as proud Jews and supporters of Israel, have been aware for the last 20, 30 years of what was happening in our universities. But it was like something in slow motion. And by the time people became really alarmed and saw the damage, the impact had been made. We've all but lost a generation that has gone through the university system. And now this facet of Jew hatred, this facet of BDS is so powerful because it is leeching off of the name and likeness, the brands of celebrities to spread anti-Semitic lies about not just the Jews of Israel, but the Jews of the world. Celebrities, we all know celebrities make news, right? We may all be very concerned about a divestment campaign at a particular college campus, but most other people in the world haven't heard about that. What do they hear about? They hear about Roger Waters attacking Mick Jagger for going to Israel. They hear about a big celebrity that's canceled in defeat because they couldn't stand up to the pressure. They reach billions of people, billions of people. It's phenomenal the amount of traditional media coverage that goes to this, as well as social media. And all of that repeats, all the BDS messaging includes the classic anti-Semitic lies that have led to violence against us for millennia.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many crazy things happening, and we know, I mean, like Bella Hadid, who's been at the forefront of this in the last year or two, she has more followers on Instagram than there are Jews in the world, that there are Jews in existence. So we know that the power of celebrity, and what you said about how impactful it is. We hear a lot about campaigns, BDS as an economic boycott, economic divestment. And we know that hasn't been super successful. It hasn't affected, Israel's economy in the way that they probably hope. But at the end of the day, that's not even their goal, is it? And the cultural boycott is really where they are succeeding.
That's the bullseye for them. Because what has happened is that a lot of Israel's supporters looked at the fact, and the very real fact that we should really take to heart and warm our hearts, is that very few artists succumb to this boycott pressure. So Israel's supporters are really happy. It's like, yay, they're not winning. Well, that's not the strategy. That's the cherry. That's not the ice cream. That's not the dessert. What they really are gaining from this is that they are using their branding, their popularity, the fact that they are media magnets, to spread lies about the Jews of Israel. And in that front, they are succeeding. If you only focus on whether or not there's cancellations, that's like a business measuring their success by the amount of their sales and not their expenses. And what's really great about this, and what I try to do in my book, I actually, at the end of every chapter, there's a small note, a small step that people can do to fight back against that. So the good thing about this is that we have the same access. We have the same, I have seen this grown from like 200 really squeaky, ugly people to this like river that's flowing. And there's no reason why we cannot use the same tools they have and target our messaging to artists to reach the same hundreds of millions of people that they do, both positively as well as negatively. It's not just by calling out, or explaining the facts all the time. It's about saying thank you to artists, to expressing something personal about your appreciation and what it means to you when they speak out for Israel or go to Israel.
And in terms of talking to artists, and we can get a little more specific about what, people who don't necessarily work with artists, like what we can do. But in terms of talking to artists and why this would be important to them, can you talk a little bit about how BDS has hurt not just Israeli artists, but even Palestinian artists and artists as a whole?
Right. This task force is all about, we understand the connection and the importance of art to the human soul. We understand that that's, I think, part of what our basis is, where we're starting from, why it's so important to us to nurture that in Israel. And there's a huge amount of focus on, which is incredibly important, which is how BDS is attempting to isolate the everyday Israeli from international culture. But on the flip side, which is really important, and I would think would be very close to our hearts, is what is happening to Israeli artists. And they are, first of all, they're being discriminated against. But there's also, BDS puts pressure on international venues to rescind invitations to Israeli artists. They are humiliated. When there's this huge fine arts or performing arts festival that goes on in Edinburgh every year, and Israeli artists, they cause so much protest and turmoil and negativity around Israeli troops that are performing there, that there have been times when the venues say they have to cancel the performance because they don't have the ability to handle the disruptions. And the Israeli artists were forced to perform on the streets. It's incredibly intimidating. When I was in London, I went to see the Jerusalem Quartet, and there were probably only 15 protesters outside. I gotta tell you, walking through this like tunnel of shame on you, shame on you, Israel's an apartheid state, genocide, murder, as you walk in is very intimidating. And in the lulls between the different pieces, you could hear bleeding through the walls. You know, Israel is an apartheid state from the river to the sea. You could hear those chants. So they face, and even death threats. JNF and allowed me to interview Sarah Edon, who now I'm switching, I'm sorry. Well, first of all, yes, Israelis face death threats all the time. The IPO in Morocco, they didn't even advertise because they were afraid for the safety of the performers. And Palestinians are really denied, and Arabs that are open to collaboration and using the arts as a bridge to peace, get threats. Sarah Adon, who I interviewed for JNF, she is a former Miss Universe participant. When she took a selfie with Miss Israel during a pageant, she and her family got death threats. So they are suffering as well. And there is something that we can do. And I, invite everyone to take a look. It's called Artists Under Fire, and read it. I think it lays it out really well, and it's a really helpful guide. And we're all in a powerful position to make a difference and push back.